Alex Pereira defeated Jan Blachowicz by split decision at UFC 291. Former light heavyweight champion Jiri Prochazka immediately challenged him to a fight for the vacant world title. Hello fighters. This is World of MMA channel. In today's video I will give a prediction for a potential title fight between Jiri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. But before you start this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give me a like. Let's go! Alex Pereira may not have been in MMA very long, but he has made quite a splash. First, after several mixed martial arts wins, the company notices him and signs him to a promotion to promote his potential fight against Israel in the future. The Brazilian is starting to win and the company decides to fast-track him. The UFC gives him a puncher who at the time was in the top 5 middleweight division. Pereira, to the surprise of many, was able to knock out his opponent and to take his position, thereby knocking himself out of a title fight against an old acquaintance of Adesanya's. The fight for Alex did not turn out the way he wanted it to. The champion controlled the fight for almost the entire allotted time. But at the end of the 5th round, Pereira decided to wake up. With one of his punches, he shocks the champion and finishes him off. Thus, he becomes the new middleweight champion. But the UFC gives the former champion a chance, and their rematch went much worse for Alex than their first fight. Until the 3rd round, the fighters had a shootout on the hands, where I didn't see a clear favorite. But in the 3rd round, with one of his punches, Israel sends his opponent into a deep knockout, and thus he avenges his past defeat. Alex wanted to make another fight with Adesanya, but Dana White wasn't thrilled with the idea and suggested that Pereira move up a category and try his hand there. Pereira listened to Dana and moved up to the light heavyweight division. He was challenged by former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz, who fought Magomed Ankalaev for the vacant belt in his last fight. Alex was able to defeat Jan by split decision and is now the main challenger for the belt. Jiri Prochazka originally fought in the Russian promotions Fight Nights and Pro FC, and was the first to defeat Vadim Nemkov, the current Bellator light heavyweight champion. His record in MMA is 29 wins and 3 losses. He is 30 years old and got into martial arts, like many, by accident. At the age of 6, he lost his father, and to somehow fill the void, young Jiri got into sports. Prochazka practiced in the soccer section. But this was not enough for the Czech, and to vent his aggression he went to judo, wrestling and karate. At the age of 16, Jiri moved to Brno and entered the training academy for police, firefighters and private security guards. One of the compulsory subjects was hand-to-hand combat. But it was not enough for him, and in his free time he visited a martial arts hall. After winning the Czech Muay Thai championship, Prochazka decided to focus on MMA. This is the baggage with which Jiri became a professional fighter. After 17 fights and 14 wins, he received an invitation from the Japanese organization Rizin, where he defeated Nemkov, but lost to Muhammad Lawal in the Grand Prix final. Since then, he has won 3 straight, and those wins were enough for an invitation from Dana White. Prochazka had a colorful debut, knocking out Volkan Oezdemir. Then he was given former belt challenger Dominic Reyes, who Jiri knocked out. After that he got a chance to challenge Glover Teixeira for the world title. The fight was very entertaining and competitive. However, at the end of the fight Prochazka manages to catch the Brazilian in a chokehold and become world champion. But then he declares that he got a serious injury and in order not to delay the division, leaves the belt vacant. And as usual we'll start with the striking, and first up we have Alex Pereira. Alex in the stand-up is more dangerous than ever, because he came from kickboxing. And as we know from Adesanya, the guys who come from this sport are different in their fighting game, i.e. his style, punches, completely different than the average fighter. His footwork and his ability to work on the counterattack can help him catch a check. Now moving on to Jiri Prochazka's punching technique, and before his injury he was showing masterful performances in the style of Tony Ferguson. As long as he's young, that style will work. His speed makes him outplays his opponents without leaving them a chance to win. He also has a difference from El Chuchuy. Tony virtually never knocked out his opponents. There were occasions, but it was rare. And Jiri, on the other hand, showed that if he got a good shot, his opponent would fall to the canvas. I think everyone saw the Prochazka vs Reyes fight. The Czech showed his whole nature in that fight. That kind of beating hasn't happened since Tony Ferguson's peak. Elbows, hard punches to the face. That was truly a legendary fight. Also worth mentioning is his last fight against Teixeira, where he also showed the beauty of his fighting technique. What about favorite? I think Alex Pereira will have the edge here. He outboxed Blachowicz in his last fight and was able to knock out Adesanya before that. Now on to Jiri Prochazka's wrestling game, where we'll also have plenty to talk about. Prior to the title fight against Glover, Jiri didn't show much of his skill on the canvas. Only punches and, in extreme cases, ground finishes. The big question for the fans was whether he could hold his own against the Brazilian. And as we realized, he could. Yes, there were episodes in which Teixeira took dangerous positions. But we can say that the fight was on the opposite course. Prochazka would shake Glover in one of the hits, or the Brazilian would hit well. It was the same with the wrestling. I could not find any other examples where Jiri showed his wrestling technique. He entered the UFC as a fighter with a name and regalia behind him. So he was led down a separate, simpler path. We now turn our attention to Pereira's wrestling. Alex, compared to his first fight against Adesanya, has significantly improved his wrestling skills. In the last fight he showed that he can defend himself against takedowns. But still there are disadvantages, that he can miss a takedown at the beginning of the fight and let his opponent control him. But you could see that he is very good at light heavyweight, and he has the strength to defend against takedowns and do some submissions. What about a favorite? I think Prochazka is the better here. I mean, not everyone's been able to strangle Glover. I think this is going to be a very competitive fight. Prochazka, if he loses in the stand-up, will come in and try to control from the top. Pereira will defend against the takedowns and fight in the stand-up. But I think Alex Pereira will win this fight by knockout. He will be able to take Prochazka's jaw with his signature left side punch. Jiri has a very open style, and it will be very easy for the Brazilian to hit him. What do you think, friends? Write your opinions in the comments. Bye, everybody.